Hello and welcome to episode 530 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP. Join me as always is the glorious LeagueFreak, who you can also find on Twitter at LeagueFreak. How you going there, mate?
Going all right, Andrew. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
Excellent.
Yeah, got over a mild case of death, but I'm back. I'm back. Can't be kept down.
Excellent. I went to a footy game on the weekend thanks to Nadine. She invited me to Penrith versus North Queensland.
Oh, back in the corporate boxes.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we watched the game in between being served various cheeses and wines, as you do. But
it's good. It's good to know that you know someone who, I was going to say she doesn't actually own the corporate box, because that would imply that there was some sort of transaction in place. She was gifted that. Yeah. Because Penrith generally fear her not being happy with them, so they gave her one just to keep her happy.
Pretty much.
And that's fair play. Fair play.
It was let me tell you, it was freezing and it was raining. Didn't get rained on though, which was good. And Penrith played like crap, unfortunately, but it's always good fun. And so that was a pretty cool thing to do on the weekend. But I'm looking forward to when they take on the Broncos. It's going to be an interesting game. And honestly, the Broncos kind of need to win this game over Penrith.
It's an interesting one, because I don't think you can take much out of Penrith's form from last week, given that it wasn't exactly their full strength side. But the Broncos' form of late, not very convincing.
Yeah, it's a little bit along the lines of the Warriors, where at some point you are the team that you are on the ladder. And all season I've been thinking Penrith, Broncos, Storm. And at some point I've got to change that, and I really don't want to, because I really do worry that the Broncos are going to turn it on. But it doesn't matter if you miss the finals, and they're looking like they could miss the finals.
Yeah, and I think part of it just comes down to the fact that whole below fifth place on the ladder thing is very congested. Mm-hmm. So if you're not quite up to scratch for a few weeks, you find yourself going from fifth or sixth on the ladder to 9th, 10th, 11th.
Yeah, and that's this point of the season now. That's where we're at. That's why it's so important for the Broncos to get a win over Penrith, because, you lose this one and, you just need a couple of bad games, and all of a sudden you look up and it's finals time, you're not there. So,
that's right. And we are getting very close.
We are, yeah.
We've got 10 rounds to go?
I think so, yeah. Yeah,
so it's
catching up on us.
Pointy end of the season.
Now, there was some news that come out today, or over the last couple of days, with the Perth expansion bid, which now looks like it's going to be the next expansion team. And Newtown basically pulled out of any suggestion that they were going to work with Western Australia. And to me, that sort of was a thing of they could see the writing on the wall. And it seems as though we're going to end up with the Perth Bears, which kind of sucks. And feels very unseemly. I think that Perth should have got its own team and didn't need the Bears whatsoever. But for some reason, apparently the NRL feels like that if there's a Perth team, they need some sort of connection with Sydney. And I don't know why. It's a Perth team. It just makes no sense.
I think Perth have been starved of a team for too long, and they are probably just going to accept whatever's thrown their way, sadly.
I agree, yeah.
Which is probably why they're going to go all in for the Bears. But I got told via the Fergo and the Freak Facebook messaging group thingy there by one of our avid listeners. And sorry I don't have your name at the moment, but he said that some radio program mentioned that Perth should be called the Quackers. And I went, oi!
Yeah, I think it was Adam Hawes from memory.
Right, that's right, yeah. I mean, you did copyright it though, didn't you?
I didn't copyright it, but I mean, there is no way anyone was talking about the Perth Quackers before me. But I don't mind it. If other people pick,
you did buy the website, didn't you?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I've got Mad Quackers, but I haven't got Perth Quackers.
Oh, we're gonna have to push the Mad Quackers then to they take that on board.
I just don't understand why it wouldn't be the Quackers, but if more people have the same idea, I don't have any problems with it. But I guess Bears, it's good for marketing. I wonder if they'll change the logo because the logo is a bit old-fashioned, which is fine if you're looking at an old-fashioned club, but this will be a new club. Wouldn't it be funny, though, if they did this deal, got into the NRL, and then Northern Eagled and they just ditched them? Wouldn't that be fucking hilarious?
They come out and just go, we're going to go with the Wallabies now. Geez, that'd be good, wouldn't it?
Oh, I'd say, it would just be so funny to, they're the Perth Bears and stuff, and then the Perth Consortium gets in, they're all set up and stuff, and they're like, no, we're changing it. And North Sydney goes, but wait. And they're like, what are you going to do? Kick us out?
Yeah, we've decided we're going to go with Seagulls.
Seagulls. That was a terrible name. What would be a good footy team name? You can't use Quackers.
For the Perth team?
For any team, just a random team.
Oh, Lions is usually pretty good. Something aggressive and violent.
Cassowaries?
Cassowaries.
That'd be a cool one.
I'll tell you what would work over there in Perth, given that they've got a Formula One driver from over there, is honey badgers.
Yeah, I guess. They don't have honey badgers in Perth, though.
Do they have bears there, though?
No, they don't.
Like they've got tigers in Campbelltown.
What is the silliest name that we have for a team?
Silliest name. I don't know. I think Raiders, Knights are pretty bad.
Knights, yeah. Titans, I guess.
Titans is just wishy-washy horseshit, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Storm is pretty miserable.
Yeah.
That's not really trying, to be honest.
Broncos, when you think about it.
That was just alliteration.
Yeah. I don't mind Cowboys because they do have Cowboys up in North Queensland.
Yeah, that one, I'm okay with that one. I think most of the bird-themed ones.
Why? Why bird-themed ones?
Well, I think a team mascot usually has to imply some sort of, you're scared of them.
Yeah.
And no one's scared of birds. You get mildly irritated by them.
What about eagles, though?
Yeah, they're in the sky. They're not chasing humans.
Yeah, that's a good point. I believe
they're just chasing lambs and shit like that.
I think we've got the biggest eagle in the world in Australia, don't we?
Yeah, everything we've got's massive.
Yeah. The Panthers one is weird because it seems like it's a silly one, but it's actually based on the legend of a panther that's in the area. That's right.
I like that. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, but that's weird how it's like that. I think the Parramatta Eels is fantastic. That's maybe the best one.
Yeah, I do like it when it's unique to that team in that area.
Yeah. And then you've got
one. Even to be honest, even South's kind of works. They've kind of lost the direction on the homage to the rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't actually about being a rabbit. It was about the men who killed the rabbits and then sold them to people.
Yeah.
They made it cute and cuddly somehow.
It should be a slaughtered animal.
Yeah, it just needs to be a man holding up a dead animal that's dripping blood. Yeah. Maybe that's how they should start every game, is just have some bloke come out and just murder a rabbit.
Just skins it. The Dragons is good, St. George Dragons, but I remember when they merged with the Steelers, it might have been Andrew Denton that said they should call them the Steel Dragons and just have this cool night. That's just that. Yeah. What other ones have we got that's
Sharks make sense. That's in the about by the bay down there.
That makes sense, yeah.
Roosters.
The Roosters.
Burbo's just not doing it for me.
Bulldogs are just a nothing name, really, when you think about it. It's just
but
they used to be the Berries.
They did.
and that made sense.
That was a play on word for Canterbury, but also because they used to have a lot of fruit picking that went on out that region back when they first came along.
Yeah.
Because Western Suburbs were initially called the fruit pickers as well because they represented that whole area and that's where all the fruit was being picked.
I believe the Panthers were originally like the Waratahs, but their colours were going to clash with the Sharks, so they had to change their colours and they went with Panthers.
No, they were going to go with so it was kind of the other way around. The Panthers wanted the colours brown and white, but the Sharks had already gone with those colours, brown, white, and yellow, I think. And the Sharks are going to be called the Lions. But they didn't want to clash the name with the English team that was about to come and tour over here. And because Penrith wanted the colours, they let Penrith have the colours. And the Sharks then used the colours and the mascot of their surf lifesaving team, which is the black, white, and blue, and it was the Sharks.
Oh, that's so weird. I'm sure.
So that's where theirs came from.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what their initial colours were or what they planned to be. The fact that because they did change from something and they wanted brown for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was the fact that they wanted the brown and that the Sharks were kind of told you can't have lions. So it kind of, because they couldn't have what they initially wanted, they then just let Penrith have the brown and they went and did something completely different. And that's why they went with the surf life-saving one because...
That's weird. I'd heard it the other way around, hey? And that they were the Penrith Waratahs and their colours were like light blue. I wish I remembered where I'd heard that.
I don't know. There might be some element of truth to that. Because a lot of it, though, did come from the fact that the Sharks weren't allowed to be called the Lions.
Yeah.
So that threw it all up in the air.
You couldn't call it a rugby league team the Kiwis, the Kangaroos, the Lions.
You typically don't want to have teams that are using iconic colours. That's why we don't have any NRL teams getting around wearing like all black jumpers or green and gold jumpers. We don't want it to clash with the national side. We don't want people to get confused between the two.
Yeah, and only like some sort of fake plasticky team would steal the name of a touring side or a logo.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like a fake fucking franchise, heartless, soulless thing would do that.
That's right. So it's all about doing that. I mean, when the Western Reds came in, they obviously their mascot was obviously a kangaroo. They couldn't use kangaroos though, so they went with Reds, as in, the red kangaroo.
Yeah, which is a shame because like it's a cool. I mean, like a red kangaroo is a cool logo because I don't think of the Australian mascot as being a red kangaroo.
No,
you kind of think of it as being a normal kangaroo.
Yeah,
you can't use the name kangaroos. So
the red kangaroo is basically a mad kangaroo.
It's like a steroid kangaroo.
Yeah,
it's like a kangaroo that has taken supplementation and goes out there and plays 80 minutes of Origin football in the front row.
Maybe it's one of those boxing kangaroos.
Yes,
one of those
natural athlete.
See, I think what they should do is say, okay, we'll come across as being the Perth Bears.
Yes.
And then once it gets up, they just go, we're now changing it to the Perth Mad Roos.
Yeah, why not?
I think we need a mad mascot. And I know that people might be wondering where this whole mad thing comes from. And I came back from a team, was it in Serbia? And they're called the Mad Squirrels.
Vlakabi, was it?
Yeah, Vlakabi or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And then we made like a mortal enemy of them called the Mad Quackers.
That's right. But yeah, the Mad Squirrels. Check them out. They've got some absolute brilliant merch. Just because their logo is fucking insane. It's a squirrel with red eyes. I fucking love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's bloody awesome. Speaking of International Rugby League, I watched 60 minutes of England taking on France.
Oh, yeah, that game. I missed it.
Yes. You're lucky. You're very lucky.
I heard that there was no mainstream media over there for it.
There was none. It was like on an app or something. And I can tell you, it was shown on Fox Sports on TV, so that's why I watched it. And it was not in HD. It was very much in standard definition, and that's been really, really generous. Like it seemed like.
Did you have to get up onto the roof and adjust the direction of your UHF antenna?
Maybe because the first 5 minutes they didn't have the score or the time up, right? And it was in standard definition, so it was very, very poor definition. And then the standard of play was really, really poor as well. And they announced a crowd of 4,500, and I'm telling you, there was maybe a couple of hundred people in the stands when I was watching. It was terrible. Then they start France was going through the middle of England, but England's outside backs were just big, stronger, and were why they were scoring tries. And then in the second half, like in the first 10 minutes, I think there were 12 drop balls. And I just couldn't watch anymore. I just switched it off. England ended up running away with the game, but it was so fucking dire that while I was watching it, I was actually contemplating, should they just forget international footy? Should they just not do it anymore? That's how bad it was.
England?
Well, just all of us at this point. No, seriously, it was that bad. I was like, what are we doing? Who is this for? Because this isn't for anybody to watch it, because no one could possibly watch it in England. And there's not people watching it in the stands. So who is it for? And, it doesn't mean anything. It's not like we're going to learn anything from that contest.
Well, the problem we have with this is the fact that England organised everything around this game. And they organised that one of the two French teams playing professional footy in the main English comp, one of those teams would be playing on the exact same day at the exact same venue as this match.
Yeah, after the match, yeah.
I mean, that helps.
Yeah.
That helps the French test side out. Thanks, England.
But that doesn't do anything for England either. Imagine if it was that situation with, say, the Warriors in New Zealand, right? And you would say, and there's not even that many of the Warriors players would be in the New Zealand team, I wouldn't think. But, you would sort of look at it and say, well, if we're not playing against the full New Zealand team in a mid-season test match that we're trying to sort ourselves out for whatever's coming up ahead of us, what are we doing? It's not going to do anything for us either. So it was just it was a pathetic event, and it really just put another nail in the coffin of international rugby league for me. It's just such a waste of time in the Northern Hemisphere. At the amateur levels, it's fantastic because they're all sort of at a similar level and they're playing within themselves. But trying to dress up that sort of shit that I watched on the weekend, it was pathetic. And I just think that the sooner the International Rugby League is dissolved and the NRL just takes over, what's the worst that's going to happen? Are we going to have cancelled World Cups? Are we going to have test matches played in front of hundreds of people? No. So why would it be worse than what we got now?
Well, these are all fair questions.
Yeah.
I genuinely do like this. This is going to sound weird, okay? I love international footy, but I think what I love is watching two international sides playing one another, and I don't know of any of the players that are in that game. When I say I don't know, I mean they're not players who we see playing every week in either the Super League or the NRL.
Yeah.
So I like watching games like Netherlands versus Germany.
Yeah. Which I think we've done.
Yeah. I find that absolutely amazing because those people are playing for that fucking jumper.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing else. There's absolutely nothing else. And they're proud as fuck to be wearing that jumper. And they're not out there being absolute dickheads. They're not sitting there and, trying to slow down, play the balls and stuff like that. They just, send to the set, give the ball to the other side. Way we go, rip in.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just raw football.
Yeah, and you and me have watched a bunch of those sorts of games together, and it's been fun.
Yeah.
And then if you remember the World Cup, which was just a chore, and then
it wasn't
you get
fun because you expect it to be better because you're watching the elite players.
Mm.
So you're not expecting to see every damn match being a fucking blowout. And yet you're getting better contests when Spain plays against Norway than what you're getting when, Australia plays France or something.
Yeah, exactly. And
it just seems wrong.
Like when it's something that you can't sell to people like you and me who are junkies, all right, then what's it for? Are we just going through the motions? Because if we're just going through the motions, it's got to be a better allocation of time and money and, broadcast interest and things like that to maybe look at doing something else. And hopefully then the World Cup that they have that's, cut down to however many they're going to have, 12 teams or 11 teams or whatever it's going to be. Hopefully that is a better product. But, these things that the International Rugby League's putting together for the most part are just a farce. And we just need to scrap the International Rugby League. It's had its day. Like they tried to give it another go. They tried to reboot it and it hasn't worked. It's devolved into something that was worse than what we had before, which was just a free-for-all. Like it's literally worse than that.
Well, I've said all along, the best thing they can do is, start actually broadcasting all of the games on their website.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I'm not talking about games between England and France. I'm talking about all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And after it's been broadcast, leave it there like a YouTube thing so people can go and watch them later.
Yes.
Right? And you have to do this for all international games so people can actually go there and see what's going on. And by doing that, you're getting more eyes on all of the games. And that's going to help international football at all levels. But instead, it's like International Rugby League is a ton of jigsaw puzzle pieces, and the International Rugby League are holding a bag, and they're saying, right, can you put all your pieces in the bag, please? And they're just in there holding the bag and looking at all the pieces on the floor all around them. And they're going, well, I mean, we've done all we can do.
Yeah, yeah.
We're holding the bag.
And like, could it be any worse if just you had a small arm of the NRL running it all? It couldn't be any worse. Like, we've had periods of time where the International Rugby League has literally had no games scheduled. By the way, a few months after they've boasted that they've got an international calendar that they're going to put out year after year after. Like, when's that coming out? When's the international calendar? There is none.
Well, the international calendar for past seasons is like out because it's been done. Does that count?
Well, they'll do, like, they think an international calendar is saying in 2 years from now we want to have a tour match. And
yeah.
But they don't. That's not a calendar. That's a wish list.
Come on, if you've got a calendar and just open up to a random page that says we would like to have games here.
Yeah,
that's written on a calendar.
Like,
how's that not a calendar?
Look, if you and me wanted to go to the next game between Australia and New Zealand, we don't know when it's going to be or where. That's a calendar.
If you bought a calendar and wrote it on the calendar somewhere, not on the date bit, but on the picture bit. Look, there's a lot of pictures of the Himalayas. We might play rugby league sometime on this page.
It's kind of like if you hand a book to an idiot and say, here, read this. And they, okay. And they start reading it in their head. And it's like, no, read it out. Like, do you reckon their calendar is written out somewhere, but they don't say it out loud?
All I'm seeing here is merch that we could be selling. We could just have on our website, the Fergo Freak website, we have a merch section on there where you can buy an international calendar. It's just going to be a calendar.
Mm.
Like one you put on your wall.
Yeah.
But there's no dates on it.
Nah.
It's just got, every page has got possible international matches here.
It'd be
single
cool
page.
if we played the World Cup this year.
That's just every year. We could sell that. I reckon that sounds like a good job for you to sort out.
I can sort that out. That's easy. That's real easy. But yeah, it's just it was terrible. What they put on was terrible, and that's on top of like the English players getting £250 to play in the match, which I wouldn't have done if I was a professional player. So who knows what France gave their players, and it was just a mess. So yeah, that's my report of the Test match. Wonderful stuff.
Yeah, it was close at half time, and then it wasn't at full time.
Yeah. There was also more talk this week. I think it was because Phil Gould brought some bullshit up. He said that the NRL should invest in Super League, which is, I think it's clickbait at this point when people say it. Like they want to get some interactions on Twitter and stuff, and so they say, you know what, the NRL should invest in Super League, and you get all these people going, yeah, that's a good idea, and then you've got to spend the next 3 days pointing out to people there's nothing there, there's nothing to invest in. Like,
can we break this down to the word invest? Right, that's where you put money into something, and in return it grows in value, so that when you take your money out, you've had an increase in what your initial investment was.
Yes.
We're not doing that with anything we do with the Super League. No matter what happens to it, it's not going to go up in value.
No.
So
it's been going down in value for 50 years now.
Yes. So let's do away with the word investment, shall we, mainstream media? It's never going to be an investment. What it is going to be is a relief fund.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that if you got the NRL, which is a bunch of Australians, going over there and saying, let's say we're buying the Rugby Football League, right, which is basically a bunch of letterheads and the rental agreement on an office, and we're controlling things now. The first thing that Super League clubs would do would be break away from that and start their own competition, which they've done over and over again.
I've had a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
They don't buy the RFL. They don't buy Super League. They don't invest in it. What they do is they go and says, we are going to buy your League One teams. Because they're all going to be cheap as shit, okay? This is your third division competition. Yes. And there's 2, 4, 6, there's 9 of them.
Yeah.
Right? So we'll buy your League One teams, and we'll buy York from second division. Maybe, no, that'll do. Fuck it. The rest can stay there. Right? Because with that, they'd have York, Oldham, Keighley, Rochdale, Hunslet. Then there's a team in Midlands, North Wales, and Newcastle, as well as York. A little bit of a spread, and it's 10 teams. And they go, right, players who want to get a bit of experience from Australia, overseas, those are the 10 clubs you can go to. The NRL will look after your wages. The clubs over there don't have to pay for them. Go over there and play in that competition. Watch how quickly it takes for that League One to surpass the second division and go very close to challenging Super League.
They probably would, yeah. I think the only way any of it you could do anything like in England from an NRL perspective is if you just start the NRL in England, where
you can't deal with the current teams.
No, it's your company. You create the teams and you sell the rights to your competition, and there's no connection to anything else. Because
fill it with Australian players as well. That way you're not even taking anything from their local competition.
Yeah. I think that's the only way you could do it, because otherwise you're walking into an absolute quagmire of flaky people and users and losers and all that sort of shit, and you're dealing with all of the problems they've currently got, and that's just setting it up for the same failure they've had going on 50 years now. Like, it's a lose situation.
We've talked about it several times over.
We have, yeah.
So thanks for your insight again there, Gus. Stick to doing stuff by mobile phone, fella.
We got an email a couple of weeks ago, and I forgot.
I
forgot to read it out, and it was because the episode that we did that was next was the State of Origin episode, and New South Wales had won.
Yes, and we had to be thorough on that one.
Yeah. Hang on. Let me go to podcast emails because I felt bad when I remembered after the game. So it was from Glenn, right? And he says, and I don't read these ahead of time because I like to read them while we're recording. So it says, "G'day, Fergo and the Freak. Just wanted to introduce myself as a fan of the podcast. 19 things I hate about rugby league. Listening to it, I felt very sorry for Richie," and then he put in brackets not. And then he said, "What a flog with the introduction of the salary cap era. More players are moving around, and something he may not understand is they have friendships. I'm so over the media negativity around the game. Until the next email, cheers, Glenn." So thank you, Glenn. I'm so sorry I didn't get to that. He sent that on the 24th of the 6th. And it was just, we had the State of Origin games and stuff like that. And I remembered it like about 5 minutes after we stopped recording the Origin game, after the Origin game.
I'd like to call that moment the moment of regret.
Why is that the moment of regret?
Because the first 5 minutes after we finish an episode, we go, "Oh, fuck, we should have..."
Oh, yeah.
We forgot to mention, we forgot to do this.
It
all falls in that 5 minutes of regret straight after you stop recording.
That's very true. All big news.
It's the opposite of the 5 minutes of regret we have at the start before we press record, where we're saying, "Mate, we're burning an episode here."
Yeah, we talked a lot about Josh Hannay and the youngest players to make their first grade debut. It was really good conversation you just would have loved.
Went for half an hour.
Yeah, he did. Literally did.
We just give you guys the absolute fucking dregs. We save the best of the podcast just for ourselves.
Oh, shit. That's funny when we'll do a podcast and we'll talk for 2 hours about footy. And then after the podcast, we'll get into some like minute detail of a tour that happened in the 50s and we're fucking just riffing on it. And it's funny when we do that. And we've done it like now we've literally done it hundreds of times too. Like,
yeah, absolutely. We never learn.
No.
Thanks for that, Glenn.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. And I am sorry that I didn't get to that earlier. I put it into my email folder for the podcast emails, and yeah, then it was just like Origin happened and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. Now tonight, the Eels have been smashed by the Rabbitohs, 32 points to 16. I'm just seeing if
that Parramatta's back at the bottom.
I was going to say, yeah, it's got to be close, hasn't it? Let me see. Yeah, they're back at the bottom.
Their points difference is now 6 points worse than the West Tigers is.
Excellent. So if the West Tigers win, who are the West Tigers playing this weekend? They're playing the Storm. Oh, forget that. It's all right.
I was going to put it. I thought, oh, no. I'll let him do that research. It'll be funnier.
Well, you know.
I was going to say, now that we're here,
yeah,
should we have a look at the upcoming games this week?
Well, yeah, we might as well. Hey.
Yeah, we don't need to do anything in a linear order. We'll do it in whatever the fuck order we want.
Excellent.
I'm going to go through a few stats here, okay? Just for the game that's just been on.
Okay.
I'm going to have to update it, though. So prior to this game, Trent Barrett had won just 6 of his last 42 games as coach. Now, for perspective, the West Tigers have won 8 of their last 42 games.
That's crazy, hey?
And now Barrett's at 6 of his last 43 games as coach.
That says to me, like, for that losing record in the NRL is, like, that's lower than what a bad team, like, as you say, it's lower than what the West Tigers have done, and they're wooden spooners, right? So that says to me, when he goes to a club, players do not respond to him at all.
No. So I know we've ripped on him a bit in the past, and rightfully so.
Yes.
Okay. But I figured, let's take a bit of a quick opportunity to go through some Trent Barrett coaching memory lane, shall we, over his career thus far.
Okay.
Right. He turned up at Manly in 2016. The year before, Manly missed the finals for the first time in ages, but only just. And that's because they started the season with a fuck ton of injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Just bring up the season here. And they'd won by round 14. They had won 3 games. And they were sitting dead last.
Mm-hmm.
And then they won all but 4 of their last 12 games. They won 8 of their last 12 to go up to 9th, and they were 1 win away from the top 8.
Mm-hmm. Those were the good old days for Trent Barrett.
No, this was Jeff Tuvey. So this is 2015. So they did that run. And after that run, and they rallied hard, and they almost made the finals from last place halfway through the season. And they went, sorry, Jeff, that's not good enough. We're going to replace you with Trent Barrett.
Okay.
So a team that had been habitually in the finals and just missed out after a horror injury run, the sacked the coach, put Barrett in place. And what did they do the next year? They finished 13th. The team directly below them was Parramatta, and they had 12 competition points docked from them.
Mm-hmm.
So they were basically third last. Now, the following year, they did make the finals. And this is the blip on the Trent Barrett radar.
So these are the good old days for Trent Barrett.
Yeah. So 2017, this is his heyday as a coach. They made the finals just. They got to 6th on the ladder and lost to Penrith in the first round of the finals, 22-10. Shall we have a look at some of the players he had in his squad? Because it might have just been a bad side that he had.
Okay.
So he had. I'll just go through the players who had some sort of rep experience at whatever level. Nate Miles, Lewis Brown, Frank Winterstein, Aquila Uardi, Daly Cherry Evans, Darcy Lussick, Martin Tapau, Matthew Wright, George Tafua, Appy Coruscant, Curtis Sheridan, Jake Trebojevic, Dylan Walker, Adam Fanua-Blake, Brian Kelly, and Tom Trebojevic.
It's not bad.
Pretty shit side that.
Yeah, but it's not bad. It's not terrible.
I mean, there's no stars in there. He's never gonna be able to do anything with that. Fucking hell. So that was his peak season, and they bowed out miserably in the first week of the finals.
Mm-hmm.
So that was where he should have done, let's be honest, a hell of a lot better with the squad that he had at his disposal.
The thing about that team, like you think of those players, like most of them were in the peak of their careers.
Well, some of them were.
Yeah.
And there were a few others that was still had their best ahead of them.
Yeah.
Like DCE was in his peak, but that still hasn't ended.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you've got both the Trebojevic boys were only just starting out then. Like Tom had only just come into first grade at that stage. But yeah, the following year, after getting to 6th and making the finals the following year, second last.
That's a rough one.
That was at Manly, second last. Only Parramatta was worse. Manly also had the worst defence in 2018. In 2017, when they made the finals, they had their defence was ranked 11th in the competition. 11th, and they made the finals. So
yes.
That was the end of his run at Manly.
It was a quick one.
He came in, he kind of ruined it, and then left. So he was gone. Didn't coach in 2019 or 2020, and then he came to the Bulldogs in 2021. Now, we will say this. Not a great squad that the Bulldogs had in 2021.
No, terrible. Absolutely terrible.
So he wasn't a hiding to nothing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you've got a horrible squad, your salary cap's a mess, surely the first thing you do is not hire a coach who has not proven himself. A team where he should have. There was no reason for him to miss 2 of those 3 final series at Manly. That Manly squad wasn't bad. It wasn't bad enough to be missing the finals in 2 of those years.
No.
No side with DC in it should be going that poorly.
No, the thing that always got me about Trent Barrett is like he did some lower grade coaching at Penrith, and there was this it seemed like an entitlement that like he wants to be a first grade coach. He wants to be a first grade coach, and that's fair. But then when he's got the chance, he blew it. And we've talked about how you don't know how somebody's going to be as a first grade coach until they do it. You just do not. Like anybody that pretends that they know how someone's going to go as a first grade coach, they're lying because no one knows. Because it's such a weird job. Like, and there's only 17 of those jobs now in the NRL, in the whole world. So some dudes, they look set up and ready to go. They've got all the experience, and it just doesn't work for whatever reason for them. And Trent Barrett wasn't even that. Like, he didn't really have the experience. And then he got the job, and it just didn't work out. But then he got another job, and that didn't work out. And now he's the assistant coach at Parramatta, where he takes over from Brad Arthur when he gets sacked. And it's like, I've joked that they need to give him a 5-year contract and hold on to him just because of the lols. I like the lols. But I've heard that they're actually going to give Josh Hannay a 1-year deal as coach.
Oh, so look, here's the problem. Hannay himself, I think when he went to, he was at the Sharks as assistant coach.
Yeah.
Remember when Flanagan got the ass? I can't remember. He had to take over Sharks as the interim coach there. No, that's right. It was when John Morris left.
I thought it was Morris, yeah.
Yeah. So, and he took over as the coach there, but he made it clear that he had zero aspirations to be a head coach.
Yeah.
And the uncertainty there, he went, yeah, you know what? I don't want to be here. I'm going to go back to the Cowboys, and I'm going to just be the assistant coach there. And then they sacked their coach midway through the season the following year, and he had to be their assistant. They had to be their head coach until they got I don't want to say his name because he would probably stare at me and make me die inside. Todd Payton. Todd Payton came along. So 2 years in a row at 2 different clubs, he went from being the assistant coach, which he was happy to do, to being the head coach. So I always had the impression that he didn't want to be a head coach, which is fine. A lot of people are well aware of their capabilities.
Yeah.
And have proven themselves to be very good as an assistant coach. You get lots of them everywhere. And so I'm surprised that he's put himself forward for that, because from memory, he's not had any interest in doing that sort of head coaching gigs. And why would you sign a 1-year deal? That seems like you're on a hiding to nothing.
Yeah, that's setting yourself up for failure. I mean, like, if so let's say Parramatta finishes in the bottom 3, which is looking very, very likely. If they come 12th, which is an improvement, you can sack him because they come 12th. Like, you've basically got to make the finals, and even then, like, which we've seen with Josh Morris, like, make the finals with a team that's not fantastic, and you can still get sacked.
Yeah, it's an odd one.
How's he supposed to build anything when he's going to be there for? It's not even 12 months. Like,
well, this is the thing. You can't be signing coaches on deals where the majority of your salary cap is tied up in a set squad that you can't edit. Like, this is the problem that we saw this with the West Tigers with Michael Maguire.
Yeah.
When he was signed, a bulk of their money was tied up in a handful of players for 4 years. And when did they get rid of him? In that 4th year, just as he was starting to clean out some of those players and free up a bit of salary cap space. Then they dumped him. You're like, oh, you fucking idiots. We finally got there. And I don't know. It just seems nuts that Parramatta be considering someone on a 1-year deal, no matter who it is.
Yeah. And like, I can see if you really want to be a coach, because the reason that they are coaches is they feel as though they can do the job. And so that, like, it makes sense to me that someone would say, give me a year, I'll prove it. I'll prove that I'm the guy for the job. Like, that's the mindset you kind of want for your coach. But from an outside perspective, it's just such a terrible idea. And it really, it shows that the Eels don't feel as though somebody's out there that's worthy of the job long term. And if that was the case, they should have just stuck with Brad Arthur.
Yeah, I still don't understand why they sacked him. Like
Brad Arthur,
he made me
said, he had his shortcomings, but he was a solid enough coach that, if the basement that you want out of your team is to maybe just make the finals, Brad Arthur's a pretty good coach, right? He's not going to make the team bottom out completely for years and years and years. And they've lost that certainty and they've replaced it with complete uncertainty. They don't know who they want to coach the club. It's fucking July, man. They've got to sort it out.
That's the thing that's nuts is if you've got an absolute garbage coach, right, you sack him on the spot because the chances of you getting a worse coach than a garbage one straight away is very low.
Yeah.
And even if it is, then that means that you haven't changed much.
Yeah.
But when you've got a coach who has proven that he can get your side into the finals on a more often than not regular basis, and be a competitive side as well at the same time, then you don't replace him until you've got an adequate replacement who is at least the same or better. You don't just dump him on a whim and hope that someone will turn up. That's just that is the worst type of management you could ever possibly have. So yeah, I wouldn't be going for. I wouldn't be going for a rookie at this stage. That club does need a lot of focus on its roster and its cap, because I think it's in a position where it's starting to look messy.
It is, yeah. And it's funny because these clubs, when they look for a new coach, what they ideally want is some guy that has just retired who is about to become the greatest coach in history and be coaching there for 30 years and win 10 premierships. And it's like, that is impossible. Sometimes you just got to get the best coach available. Sometimes you got to get the old head in that has done the job and, he knows all the ups and downs of coaching, dudes that are from the age of 17 to 35 that have all of the different problems they've got and who don't want to listen to people, and that some of them are jaded, some of them are selfish, some of them are just not built to be competitive, and they've been through all that. But these clubs, so many of them seem to want the young, unproven, untested, no experience person to come in because they've got these dreams that they're going to get Wayne Bennett in, fucking when he starts coaching the Broncos. It's just, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
No, that's right. Speaking of old heads as a coach, yes. Got any in mind?
What do you mean?
Well, I saw the article that Nadine shared with us.
Oh, yeah, it said about Brian Smith might be an option for them. And, why not? If they're going to give somebody 1 or 2 years, why not? What's the worst that happens?
Well, the good thing he'll give you is a clean slate on the roster, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But if that was if that was the outcome, they should have stuck with Brad Arthur. It just shows a club that hasn't got direction.
Yeah.
And a club that, and we've joked about Parramatta how they'll sign all of their players to 5-year deals and stuff like that and not really have any critical thinking involved in it. And it shows that really that they didn't really have a plan and they didn't really have a focus. And I think that it's coming out in this coaching search for them.
Oh, yes, I do agree. Now, there's been a bit of we were going to do I've jumped around a bit. Should we stick with the preview of the games coming up, or should we jump to some other news beforehand?
Is that other news, is there?
Well, there's been a player signing.
Oh, who? Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
They're a big club.
Big club.
Yeah, they only get the best of the best. Just ask
They've got a war chest.
Yeah, yeah.
War chest. Meaty. Let's be honest. It's a meaty, girthy war chest.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going after the elite. And they've just signed the Roosters. They've just signed a premiership-winning halfback.
Mm-hmm.
What more do you want, people? That's Chad Townsend.
I wonder what they're doing with their salary cap pay, because I don't know how you lose Manu, you lose Suali, they're losing Jared Warrior-Hargraves.
Well, I mean, he's retiring though, isn't he? Basically, he's going to England. Same thing.
He's going to England. Same thing. Yeah. So they're losing quite a few players, and they tried to get Fafita. Fafita didn't want a bar of them, and then their big signing is Chad Townsend. Now, I don't know if they've seen Chad Townsend play, but Chad Townsend isn't a very good footy player, to be honest.
No. And look, it's funny, you know, this is the sort of player that when he's playing against you, right? Not against us specifically, but for some fans, okay. We'll go with the Roosters, okay. Prior to Chad Townsend signing with the Roosters fans will look at him and go, "Oh yeah, he's fucking shit," you know. And as soon as he signs with him, he goes, "Oh, he's going to be great for our juniors when he comes in. He'll be on a development deal. He'll be trained all there." Going, hang on a second.
Yeah,
you don't believe that horseshit, do you? Like, if you want Chad Townsend to come along and help train your young halfbacks, just think about that. Do you want your young halfbacks to be like Chad Townsend Mark IIs? Is that the halfback model you want? Exactly.
And I always find it weird when people talk about, and I've always thought about this with international rugby league. They'll say like, "I will get this guy in and he'll play the games, but he'll give so much experience to the younger players." And it's like, the way you get experience is by playing, not by hearing a guy talk that played the game. Like, if you, like,
I remember when I played in my 100th game.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, that's what the fucking coach's job is.
Exactly.
So yeah, it was a bit of a sad signing for the Roosters, and I'm here for it. But it's a weird one.
I don't like. I get that Chad Townsend will likely just be a backup halfback, but I bet they've paid him more money than any other backup halfback is going to get paid. Because he's not going to leave the Cowboys and take an insane fucking pay cut just to join the Roosters. I don't see how that works. So I don't know what they think they're going to get from Chad Townsend. I'm not just shit-stirring for the sake of it. Okay, he doesn't get very many tries because his passing game is either he doesn't have much of a flat passing game, which means he has to play well before the line all the time. So he's easier to defend against. His running game has never been a strong point. His kicking game is acceptable. It's good enough. But at this stage, I would argue, look, he is a decent organizer. I'll give him that much. Okay. But if we're talking about skill set, nearly every halfback at every other club has him covered comfortably for skills.
Yeah.
I'll give him the organising thing. I'm not going to take that away from him. He is a good organiser. He's good at getting people where they should be on the field, but I would not call him a playmaker. He's got a good kicking game. That's basically what he's got. He's not fast. He's not a particularly outstanding defender. He's run-of-the-mill defender like every other halfback. He's not worse than any of them. He's not better than any of them. He's just run-of-the-mill in that area. As I said, his passing game is a little bit limited. His kicking game is definitely still perfectly fine. But I don't know. It's not the sort of sign you're seeing from home about. And
I think the Roosters will miss the finals next year.
They've got themselves into a really difficult situation because now they've got no genuine depth in their back line.
Yeah, yeah. Like, they're going to have a bunch of younger players in their back line. When Chad Townsend's your halfback, you've got a problem to begin with. If they're going to move Walker into 5'8", he's just too small. You know, you could carry Walker in the side if you had a big defensive 5'8", or someone like a Jerome Luai who does the same sort of defense as a big dude, but they're not going to have that.
I think the problem too with that is, I was going to say, Jared Warrior-Hargroves tends to be Sam Walker's, protector, so to speak. So you take him out of the team and then he's exposed.
And they all look up to Jared Warrior-Hargroves. He only performs against terrible teams. He never performs against good forward packs. James Tedesco is going to be a year older, and I just look at all of that added up, and I'm like, and by the way, they've got a coach who, it is a so-so coach. Like, I know he's got results in the past, but if they're not spending out of their skin on a bunch of players, he does not make adjustments. He cannot make adjustments. And so I just think they're going to miss the finals next year.
The thing I found crazy is there was a very good player on the market who they could have picked up, which would have been very helpful for them. That was Dane Laurie.
Yeah, it would have been an interesting addition to them, and he re-signed with Penrith for next year this week.
He did. And I think Dane Laurie would have been a good pickup because, A, can cover fullback, so Tedesco gets injured, you've got a ready-made replacement for him.
Yep.
And he can play at 5'8", so you don't need Chad Townsend. You can leave Walker at halfback, and Laurie can go to 5'8". You're covered in both areas there, and he can play one or the other permanently, so it doesn't matter which way he's got to go. And that makes up, to a degree, for the loss of Manu, because Manu's your backup fullback in that lineup, and he can cover 5'8".
Yeah.
So that helps alleviate the pain there. I thought they would have gone after him. Like, to me, that just seemed like a no-brainer. And to see that he re-signed with Penrith for, I think it's just for one more year. You just go, why did the Roosters not make him an offer? Like, that seems like a no-brainer. That's an easy and possibly cheaper solution to that problem with Manu leaving.
Yeah, well, it's a low-risk, high-reward move, Yeah,
and then all you got to do is just go find another outside back somewhere.
Yeah, and he would have come pretty cheap because, he's re-signed with the Panthers, who their salary capped out because of all of their stars that they've already signed up. And so they could have probably got him. But, they went with Chad Townsend, and it's an interesting one. It's a very interesting one. And I think that I wonder if they and other NRL clubs sometimes plan to have down years, because I don't know if you can do this anymore. I think they maybe changed it in the salary cap laws where, say I want to sign player X for next year for 3 years for $3 million, right? But this year I still have $500,000 free under my cap. I can pay some of that under my cap for this year, and then it sort of frees me up to spend more in those following 3 years. I think they might have fixed that loophole, though, so you can't do that, because some clubs were doing that, and you were seeing clubs like have an off year, but then they would have players on their cap that were coming in next year, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I do. I don't know what the Roosters do anymore. In the past, they used to always be pretty clear who they were looking for, and they were good at getting what they were after most of the time. But now I'm just looking at them going, I think they're starting to guess. It reminds me of what Parramatta did a few years ago when they brought in that Pom to replace Red Money.
What was his name? Hodgson.
Yeah, you just look at them going, I think they're starting to guess a little bit.
Yeah.
And when you see a team starting to guess with their recruitment, you're going, there's something bad about to happen here.
Well, the one that got me was Brandon Smith, where at the Storm, they never really committed to him full time as the hooker, the number one hooker. And that was always interesting to me. And it was like the game that he played for them was very different. It was almost the sort of like the thing that Peachy used to do a little bit for the Panthers, where he would play sort of in the back row and just be a footy player. Like he could roam a little bit and be a good ball. And so when they targeted Smith, I thought, we're going to finally see a team settle on Smith. I wonder how this works out. And it didn't work out. And, I really do think that Robinson has a problem adjusting on the run. And I think we've seen that a number of times. And, I think that this Chad Townsend signing it feels like they didn't have a plan for their halves, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't think they know what they're planning on at all.
Mm-mm.
To me, it just seemed like Sam Walker would be moving to the halfback role. That just seems like obvious choice because, as you said, like he's just doesn't have the frame to be anywhere else on the field. You can hide him at halfback.
Yeah, and look, they've invested a lot of time and effort into him. And if he isn't their halfback of the future, then what are they doing? Like
Chad Townsend.
But that's the thing. Like, if you think that Sam Walker isn't worthy of being your halfback after this many seasons in first grade and with this amount of football under his belt, then is he going to be a halfback the following year? What about in 2 years' time? What about 3 years' time? If the answer next year for your halfback problems is Chad Townsend and not Sam Walker, then why do you have Sam Walker? And look, I would take Sam Walker every day of the week over Chad Townsend. Like, it's not even a question about that. But this idea that they're going to basically have Walker, Keary, 2.0, and they're going to take Keary out and put in Chad Townsend, to me is just that's not going to work.
Even Keary now is still an upgrade on Chad Townsend.
Oh yeah, I would agree.
His passing game and his running game is so much better and has such much more variation to it.
Yep. And having said that, those two in their halves, you can't rely on them because they're so injury prone, both of them, and they're so small, so you can target them. And that's why I've never, ever seen them as a premiership contender this year, because you've just got these holes in their defensive line, which are just, it's money. You just target them all day with your forwards. They're going to break.
Yeah, this is true. Well, maybe they could get, I don't know, maybe John Bateman could play halfback at the Roosters. What do you reckon?
That'd be handy. You know who would be awesome if they got is Jackson Hastings.
Oh, would he go back there?
Well, I don't think the Roosters would have him back because Jackson Hastings leaves behind like burnt bridges everywhere. So I doubt that they'd ever have him back.
Wasn't there like a player revolt or something to push him out of the club to start with?
I believe there might have been, and also at the Manly Sea Eagles.
Yes.
And then, obviously there was no love lost at the West Tigers either.
No, there was no animosity at the Tigers because, when you're losing all the time, you don't really care about what other players are doing anymore. You just want the season to end.
But remember that game where the Newcastle played the West Tigers and he was giving shit to all the West Tigers players that he'd played with last year, and it was just like, no one likes this guy.
You're so okay.
He's
what was the other club we went to over in England? Was it Salford?
Salford and Wigan.
Yeah, I'll bet Wigan miss him.
Yeah, probably. Who knows?
Oh, dear. Well, who else was there? Stefano Uticamano's been officially allowed to check out what other clubs are willing to pay him. So he'll probably be at the Roosters.
Well, you know what? I think it's a good move by the West Tigers because that was hanging over their heads. And instead of all the innuendo and stuff like that, they've said, look, officially go out and see what you're worth. And if you want to leave, leave. And if you don't, come back to us. I don't think he's $1 million a year forward.
Oh, no. He's not.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if the Roosters table a decent offer to him.
Yeah, I've heard the Raiders are also one that are after him. The Panthers were said to be after him a couple of months ago. I don't know if they're still after him now. But, yeah, I don't think he's definitely not in that upper echelon realm. He's got potential to be really good, but you don't pay $900,000 for potential. You've got to be a top of the line forward for that.
I think the other problem you get with him too is he'll have 2 or 3 games in a row where he's like absolutely leading the pack, and then he'll have 1 or 2 games where he's just, did he even play?
Exactly, and that worries me.
Yeah, he needs to get a lot more consistent with his performances and make sure that the gap between his good performance and his shit performance is very, very small. At the moment, it's a bit too wide.
He's got the physical tools for it all, but you've got to question what the desire level is. And I think that's the thing with the top forwards. Like, you look at someone like Payne Haas, like, when he's out there, he's tearing in. There's no question that he's trying to get every metre he can get. And that's why he gets that much money. And Utikamanu's like, he's got the ability to be, like, for a game, a player of that ability, but it just doesn't quite work out. Yeah. So I wouldn't pay top dollar for him.
Yeah, and look, I think he's only just turned 25, so he's still got plenty of footy left in him.
Yep.
But yeah, I think a season or 2 under a genuinely experienced coach who's good with forwards would do wonders for him. So not so much Trent Robinson, maybe more Wayne Bennett, Craig Bellamy. Craig Fitzgibbon has even been pretty decent with bringing along forwards.
Yep.
I think if you had gone with one of those 3 coaches, you don't have to do it for a year or 2.
Yeah.
It would help his game so much. He'd be able to come back onto the market as 26, 27 years old and probably command big coin.
That's why when Penrith were looking at him, because he doesn't really fit the mould of the other Penrith forwards. Like, he's a bigger dude. And they've needed a bigger dude, I believe, for a while now. But Penrith they love those super mobile forwards who just have a motor that goes for days. And he's not that sort of player.
No.
But it made me wonder if they could turn into that player. And I don't know. I really don't know. And I can't spend that much money on a prop forward when I don't know. I think I probably need more than that.
I think they'd probably be more inclined to put him on the bench as a middle forward rotation sort of player.
Yeah.
And try and get his game fitness up. He's not unfit, but try and get him a little bit fitter so that he can be a bit more mobile. Not to say he's not at the moment, but the way Penrith plays is they need to have the most mobile forward pack because that's what they're after and that's what they do.
But that's the thing about him. It's like if he was just a little bit fitter, if he just was a bit more consistent, and you just go down the list of so many things like that are stopping him from being an elite prop forward.
It's only been the last few weeks we've actually started seeing him being used just on the edge of the ruck, like a lot of props have been used. At those 3 clubs that I mentioned before, you see Nelson Asafa Solomona, and she's just on the edge of the ruck. I'm talking about when we're like 5-10 metres from the opposition line. You give him a crash ball as the lead runner close to the line. Bang, he barges over. Fitzgibbon at the Sharks have been doing it with Tig Wilton an awful lot on the left edge. Bang, big forward, one-on-one. That's how you want to get them, and you just give them a crash ball and they barge over. Wayne Bennett has done it for years with big forwards on the edge. He used to do it all the time with Brad Thorne. Tony Carroll's another one. Just dish him a short ball on the edge of the ruck, bang, they barge over. And I only just started seeing it in the last 2 weeks. Coruscant giving Utica Manu little short balls close to the line, try and barge over. It hasn't always led to tries, but it doesn't have to. What you want those moves to do, if it doesn't lead to tries, is get 3 or 4 defenders all in within 1.5 meters of one another, so you can fling it out wide and create an overlap out wide. That's what those players are for.
Yeah.
And so he's been able to do that, and it's they're little parts to the game that is just starting to come along now. Which I think if he had been under some of those other coaches, he probably would have already had that developed into his game already. And they're just little development things that they're just starting to come in now, which should have been there already for an elite props. So it'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't be surprised if A, the Roosters sign him, or B, he sticks at the Tigers for another year or two. Because I know he's got an option to stay at the club for another year. So I'd say if he went out to the market, he might find that other teams are just going to offer him what he's already getting at the Tigers. And if that was the case, he'd probably just stay at the Tigers.
Yeah.
Because at least he knows that if he's at the Tigers, he's going to be the starting front rower. What you don't know is if you go to another club, no matter how good or bad they are, or a young prop, you don't know if you're going to go into the same role there. You might go to a lesser role.
There's also the possibility with some players like him where we've talked about how soft the player market is this year. It's really bad. And to the point where probably the two biggest players, him and Fafita, it's not actually off contract, it's player options that you could end up getting a team which just has the cap space. They don't really have anyone worth upgrading on their roster, and they're like, look, let's get this guy for 2 years on overs while we build whatever we're going to build down the track. But at least we've got this guy that we might be able to turn into a building block during that time. That's a possibility too.
Yep. All right. Shall we move on to the next game?
Yeah.
Sharks versus Titans. So these two stats are going to be very heavy in the Sharks' favour. Because the Sharks have won all 3 of their games at Coffs Harbour, and 2 of those 3 games have been against the Titans. They've also won their last 9 games against the Titans.
Look, I'm going for the Sharks with no confidence, hey? I think that they've been broken a little bit.
They have. The thing I find, though, is because they've been in a bit of a rough patch, they've won just 1 of their last 4 games. I think this is one of those sort of games where they'll come out and they'll go, okay, we have a bit of an easy run coming up, starting with this match. Because they've got the Titans this week, the Tigers next week, then the bye, then the Cowboys. Then they've got South. Not that easy anymore because they are on, I think, the 5-game winning streak now. Then the Titans again, then the Knights, then the Dragons, then the Warriors. They're not being pushed too hard. Yeah. And so, and they're not positioned badly on the ladder. They're still sitting 3rd. But the run of form has been bad. I wouldn't be surprised if Craig Fitzgibbon comes out and says, right, we need to start putting away some of these teams at the lower end of the ladder.
Yeah.
Right, just to get ourselves a bit of confidence and get ourselves in the right sort of form moving forward. So the teams that we come up against that have got a little bit of form on their side or a little bit higher up on the ladder, we know we've got enough confidence and we're playing the right type of football to be able to do away with those so we hit the finals in good form for a change. So I wouldn't be surprised if he starts with this game with dishing out a high score on the Titans.
They're also on equal, the Storm are 4 points ahead of the Panthers and Sharks, who have both got 24 competition points. And you want to finish in that top 2 because you don't want to end up being one of the teams that goes to either Melbourne or the Panthers' home ground and having to win a finals game in week 1.
Correct. So the one thing that was on Cronulla's side earlier in the season was their points difference was very, very good because their defence was very, very good. But in recent weeks, when you lose 4 or 5 games, that falls away pretty fast.
Yeah.
And that is what's happened. The points differential is not atrocious, but it's 30-odd points behind Melbourne and Penrith. And so the only way you can fix that is by start flogging some teams who you know you can beat. And so it's going to start with the Titans. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and say, right, we need to put 30 or 40 on the Titans and get our points difference up close to where Melbourne and Penrith are. So if we're on the same points, we can pip them on points differential and get that home final and second chance, and we don't have to play one of them or either of them.
Yeah, and I would say too that, like, for the Sharks, after that massive loss that they had at home against Penrith, which was just was crazy to watch, where they just destroyed them for 80 minutes, just let them do nothing. Even if they did have to play the Panthers at home, I don't think they'd recover from those memories, because no team's done that to another team this season. So, and especially for it to happen on their own home ground. Yeah. But it's rough. It's rough. So they need, like, they've got an opportunity. If they go on a bit of a run and the Storm drop a couple, they could get that minor premiership spot. That's the one that they should be aiming at with that soft draw going into the finals.
Exactly. Melbourne's run home is a bit trickier.
Mm-hmm.
They've got the Tigers this week, then the bye, then they've got Roosters. Always a bit tricky for them. Parramatta, Dragons, South, Penrith, Dolphins, Cowboys, Brisbane. And they're playing all over the place. Melbourne, Sydney. Then it's Penrith, Melbourne, and then 2 games up in Queensland before the finals.
Yeah, that's a bit all over the place for them. I still think they'll get the minor premiership, but it's not a fun draw.
No. So
what's Penrith's draw running in?
Let's have a look. What's Penrith on here? Here they are. So they got Brisbane this week, then the bye, then they got Dolphins, Dragons, Knights, Parramatta. So it's not a bad run there.
Is that it?
Then Storm, Canberra, South, and Titans.
Storm, Canberra, South, and Titans. That's a pretty good draw, actually.
It's not too bad. You've got basically Melbourne and Canberra back to back. Not that Canberra's going to be
easy. They're P-Hearts. We'll beat them. They are, Andrew. You know they're P-Hearts.
I can't say that. Have you seen their record against the Tigers?
Against the Tigers. For some reason, they're the greatest team of football's ever played when they played the Tigers.
Against the Tigers, it's like Dave Brown's come back.
Yeah. The thing about the Panthers, too, is they're going to get, like, and look, touch wood, this is what they've done for the last few seasons, but they get to about 3 weeks out from the end of from the finals, and all of a sudden all the players are fit and healthy and ready to go, and they start the process. That's what I'm hoping that they do this year. I think, considering some of the injuries and ins and outs and stuff that they've had this year, that to see them sitting second on the ladder, and they've really only had a couple of games where we've been like, oh shit, this is Penrith going. It's kind of crazy that they're second on the ladder, considering. So,
yeah, cruising again.
Yeah, it feels like they're cruising, doesn't it?
It does. Speaking of Penrith,
they
got the Broncos this week. Penrith have won 13 of their last 15 games at Suncorp Stadium.
Wow.
And how's this? I'm going to go over the entire history here of the Panthers Broncos.
Okay.
From 1988 to 2019, Penrith won 19 of 54 games against the Broncos. That's 35%.
Yep.
From 2020 till now, they've won 7 of 8, which is 87.5%.
It's so crazy. And what's the thing where they haven't lost back-to-back games for like years and years as well?
I've got to check that one. Actually, that's not a bad one.
Yeah.
I thought they had lost back-to-back games sometime recently.
I thought that the last time that they'd lost, it was brought up they hadn't lost back-to-back games for a while.
Let's see. I thought they did it last year. Oh, here we go. Where was it? It was last year, round 8 and round 9.
Okay.
Lost to South, 20-18.
Yeah.
And then obviously after that, they lost to the West Tigers, 12-8.
Yeah, but that one didn't count.
Oh, but it does.
What about before, like going back before that? Maybe it was like I'd heard a stat where they had lost back-to-back games once in the last blah, blah, blah.
Before that was 2021.
Okay, jeez.
where they lost to Cronulla and also lost to the West Tigers.
Yeah, but that one doesn't count.
Back-to-back weeks. And then prior to that, they lost 3 in a row in 2019 at the end of the year.
They were a different beast in 2019, though, weren't they?
They were.
Yeah.
None of those losses, though, were against the Tigers.
Oh, yeah, so they all count.
So that was against the Brisbane, the Cowboys, and the Roosters.
So they've only lost back-to-back games twice in the 20s.
Yeah.
That's fucking insane.
It is, yeah. There's something in that COVID that they got.
Yeah, well, that's the only reason they won their premierships, I've been told by Twitter. The Broncos need to win. They just have to win. They can't keep dropping these games. They sit in 10th place. They're 2 points behind the 8th place Dragons. They're 1 point behind the 9th place Seagulls. They've got the Knights and the Raiders and now the Rabbitohs on 18 points with them. They could be, if they lose a couple of games in a row, they could find themselves down in like 13th place really easy. And, I mean, that's a disaster. Look at that draw.
They've got Penrith this week, then they've got the Dragons, the Knights, the Bulldogs, the Titans, and the Cowboys, then a bye. Then Parramatta, Dolphins, and the Storm.
That's not easy for them. They've got a lot of teams that they're playing that are in and around them, though.
That's
and
right.
They've got to win. It's got to start now. It has to start now.
Yeah, it won't. It'll start next week. It won't start this week. I'm going with Penrith on this one.
Yeah, I can't not tip Penrith.
Next one, Bulldogs and Warriors. The Warriors have won their last 6 games and 8 of their last 10 games against the Dogs. And the Dogs have won their last 6 games at Stadium Australia. Their best streak at the ground since their run of 10 wins in 2012.
Oh, wow. Can't go past the Bulldogs here. The Warriors just have fallen off the wagon, and I just can't see them turning it around at this point. I think that they're only 1 point below the Broncos, and I think that's where it's at for, both of those sorts of teams where it's that close to, your season's gone.
Yeah. Now, the next one, I had a good stuff for this one. What's the one venue that the Melbourne Storm have played at where they have a win percentage of 40% or less after at least 15 games there?
Oh, man. 40% or less with
There's
15
only one
games.
venue. Only one venue.
I wouldn't have a clue. What is it?
Leichhardt Oval.
Oh, really?
They've won just 6 of their 15 games played there.
Wow, that's surprising.
That is surprising. So
the Storm, and
I mean, they basically may as well just stay at home, to be honest, and just forfeit, save themselves the shame.
Pretty much. It's like two things you don't see very often at Leichhardt Oval is the Storm and progress.
Yeah, they just go there to fail. That's what they do. Just to add to that, the Tigers' last 3 games at Leichhardt Oval has seen them win all 3 by a combined score of 116-34.
Wow, holy shit!
So I mean, Tigers by 30-10 at this rate.
I'm going to be a contrarian and say the Storm.
I mean, you could die on that hill if you want.
By the way, I saw some radio station in Sydney. It was at the Sport one, SEN, and one of their talking points during the week was, it was just one person during the week, is Jerome Hughes actually the best halfback in the game? It's like, fuck. This is why I don't listen to this shit.
Yeah, so no, he's good. He's very, very good.
Yeah.
But no. Being the best halfbacks in the game, the Cowboys. They're playing Manly. Manly have won their last 4 matches against the Cowboys in Queensland. The last time they lost to the Cowboys in Queensland was in 2016.
That's surprising.
Now, Cowboys on their home ground have conceded 228 points in their last 8 games, which is an average of 28.5 points per game, with all 8 of those opponents scoring at least 20 points in the game.
It was interesting in their game against Penrith. Penrith were absolutely terrible, and the Cowboys didn't exactly run away with it. You know, they made a hard work of it. I'm still going to go the Cowboys against the Sea Eagles, but I'm doing it with zero confidence.
I'm going Manly on this one comfortably.
Okay.
I'm done on the Cowboys.
Yeah, why's that?
I haven't seen anything from them that's told me that they've got anything in them that's going to convince me that they're going to be in the finals. And if they do make the finals, that they're going to be any form of... But I can't see them making it.
Yeah, I can't see them being a threat to any of the top teams, that's for sure.
And Manly still have this capability of winning games more often than they lose, and occasionally bringing out just a random cricket score for fun.
Yeah.
When things click, their attack just turns insane and it doesn't stop. Doesn't do it often, but when it does, it is actually pretty entertaining to watch. I wouldn't be surprised if Manly run away with this, because that Cowboys side is just leaking points too easily, and especially on their home ground. That stat was atrocious.
Yeah, terrible.
Roosters v Dragons. The Roosters have won 19 of their last 25 games against the Dragons, and over their last 15 clashes between these sides, the Roosters have averaged 30 points a game.
Oh, wow. I think the Dragons are actually going to go pretty well in this game, but I'm still going to tip the Roosters.
Yeah, I'm going Roosters on this one. Raiders v Knights to close out the round. The Knights have had just 7 wins from 28 visits to Bruce Stadium against the Raiders. Canberra, though, have conceded 305 points in their last 10 games.
This is the battle of the how good are these teams? Just ask them.
So this is the battle of mid.
Yeah, yeah. Both of the teams, they feel as though they're just a bit down on their luck because they're actually a premiership contender, and it's like, no, you're not. We're just letting you know you're not. I'm going to go. Oh man, this one. I mean, I believe Kalen Ponga's back for this one, so it'll be good to see him play for 30 or 40 minutes before he limps off. Man.
I can't see the Raiders winning this. From what I've seen from them in the last few weeks, they are their own worst enemy. Their ball handling has been absolutely dire at times. So I'm going Knights, because Raiders will just beat themselves and the Knights will just be there, and all they've got to do is just not fuck up as much, which seems something that they would be able to do. They tend to play a lot. They tend to play a lot more low percentage football, which tends to be safer than. I mean, it's not like the Raiders are playing attacking football; they're just fumbling a lot. Butterfingers.
Yeah, I want to tip the Raiders, but they've got Jordan Rapana. I'm going to tip the Raiders. Fuck it, I'm going to live dangerously.
Fair enough. Well, there we go. I think that's probably the most different we've been for a tipping round in a long time.
It probably is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, Jordan Rapana, man. If he was on my team, this podcast would just change into a Jordan Rapana rant podcast every week. I would be having breakdowns. It'd
be like 95% of my content over all of the years up until this year about the West Tigers.
Pretty much, yeah. The crazy thing is, you'll see Raiders fans on Twitter and they'll be like, man, he's just so underrated and stuff. It's like, no, I think everyone rates him pretty fairly.
Yeah. He's just, the thing about that Rapana guy, man, is when he does play well, and it's not often, but when he does play well, he's fucking impressive to watch.
Yeah.
But when he's not playing well, you hate the world.
Yeah.
For inventing the game of rugby league, because it meant that you have to watch him play it.
I've never seen somebody fuck up so many times with so much conviction and passion for the game.
He gets so angry about stuff that he's done wrong, but he gets angry at the wrong people. Like, you're supposed to be angry at yourself, you clown.
Yeah.
Oh, he's hard to watch. He's Clint Gutherson, but with more passion.
The thing that gets me is like every so often, and it's like I'm talking like once or in a space of 2 games, it'll happen once. He will do something that's so mind-blowingly stupid that you think that's like his Paul Carriage moment. This is the end of his career. And then like Ricky Stewart will come out and say, he's the heart and soul of the club.
But the thing is, I find he'll do that one dumb thing, and then just as the game is completely, it's gone from the Raiders and there's no chance they'll win, and he'll do something then which is freakishly amazing.
Mm.
And you go, he's redeemed himself. That's enough to get picked again next week. That's basically what happens.
A Jordan Rapana thing would be like an opposition team puts a kick into the Raiders' dead goal line, and no one's there, and then all of a sudden Rapana just swoops in from nowhere, gets it, gets out of the in-goal line, and, it's like, oh, man, how do you do that? Another thing is, like, they put a kick in, and Rapana's right there, and he slips over and then somehow knocks it on. But by knocking it on, he kept it in the field of play, and the other team scores. And you're like, holy shit. And it can happen in the same game, that shit,
That happens within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a random one to watch.
Mm.
He's just random. But yeah, that's basically it. I briefly wanted to just mention, not that we dabble in this too much, but ex-NRL Parramatta superstar Paul Kent.
Oh, yes.
He's had his court case. He's not going to jail. He's just got to do a bit of community service, I believe. But I was amused by a part of the testimony that was made its way into the media. Okay, so the police report from it was being read out by Kent's lawyer. She said that this stranger who approached who Kent had the argument with, they were all walking home, and the stranger said to Paul Kent if he would be going to the match tomorrow. That's in their quotation marks.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the match tomorrow. And Kent believed that was a reference to how he had faced domestic violence charges last year.
Wow. That's a long go.
That's a stretch.
Yeah.
But even though that happened, Kent said no. And the stranger then replied, apparently, that's right, you like to bash women. That was to do with the domestic violence charge, which Kent was cleared of.
Mm-hmm.
And then the stranger said to Kent, come on, you weak dog. And Kent replied, staying here, brother. I'm fucking standing here. Fucking come here now. You doghead. And to be honest, doghead. That's the bit that gets me. The rest, I don't care. I don't even care about the fight.
Yeah.
How do you, like, both parties are at fault here, okay?
Mm.
How do you, as a journalist at this age, who has fired barbs off at all sorts of players for all sorts of behaviour, a lot of it rightly so, have doghead in your head as the first insult you've got that you can fire at someone who you decide to have an argument with? And furthermore, for the other bloke, how do you hear doghead as a slanderous thing's thrown at you and not have your first reaction as being boisterous laughter?
Yeah.
How do you immediately go to anger from that? So I'm not defending either of them.
Mm.
That point right there, they're both absolute fucking idiots.
Mm.
That's all I've got on that. But doghead.
Yeah, doghead's, I mean, it's when you've run out of things to say It's a really bad one.
I think if you ask a 4-year-old, what's the worst thing you could say to someone? They would come up with bum face, which would be better.
Most likely.
Or poo head. Poo head?
They said, apparently in court, they said that Paul Kent's bark was worse than his bite, but they were actually talking about the bark that he took off that fucking tree he tumbled into, which was hilarious.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Are they bringing the tree in?
They should as a witness.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the tree was violated.
Tree would be like, man, I was just standing there and all of a sudden this fucking old man cartwheeled into me.
This drunk man. Yeah, that was nuts.
At some point you get to an age where, like, when you fall down and your shirt comes up over your stomach and there's just no returning from that, you should just get up and dust yourself off and go, well, I'm going home.
That's it. That's it. This is where I am now. That's all fucked.
Fellas, I've left my dignity at the base of this tree and I'm just going to leave now.
Yeah. What you should do is, you know when you sort of stumble and you go, I need to make it look like that was intentional. He should have just stumbled there and just pulled out his phone and just took a selfie by the tree, like put a little pose on. Oh yeah, I meant to do that, but nah, he copped it on the I was going to say chin, back of the head, on the ass.
Yeah.
But it was also revealed that he'd been sacked from his commentary jobs with Fox Sports and the Daily Telegraph, which means he's just going to end up on some other radio station.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he does now. I suggested, because we talked about it a little bit, and I said that, like, what he should do is start a YouTube page where he just basically does the same shit he did on NRL 360, because I think people would hate watch it, and I think he'd actually get a really big following. But we'll see what he does. Last time he ended up being he worked at a mortuary, I believe, driving the hearse.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to do any driving with an alcohol thing against his name, so he's got that out. That's
going to be rough. Be interesting. Actually, it won't be interesting to see what he does. I couldn't give a shit. Fuck him.
Maybe he could go into horticulture.
Yeah, imagine that. He just starts trimming trees and stuff like that.
Being an arborist.
Yeah.
There we go. There's something for Kenty to consider. That'd be funny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you could have a YouTube channel. You know what would be interesting is that he could have that YouTube channel and then he could just go off on all of the journos he's ever worked on or worked with before. And you never know. That might actually see him actually become one of the most loved people in the media when he starts shitting on the people he used to work with.
I wonder if
would that be a turn?
Yeah. We find out everyone's a cunt, and you're just like, oh, wow, that's a surprise.
Oh, that was a hell of a piece of journalism, I guess, all of that one there.
Before we go with our gigantic intro to our Formula One podcast, did you watch the race on the weekend?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good one, eh?
That was phenomenal.
That Austrian track is amazing.
Yeah, it's so tight and compact. It's crazy because I think at one stage when Leclerc came out after his second pit stop, it still was only, I think, the 15th or 16th lap or so. And when he came out, he got lapped. I mean, we're fucking 15 laps in on this short track. How have you been lapped already?
Yeah. I think it might be the best track on the circuit, hey, because it's like compact, but it feels like a natural track, and it's got a bunch of overtaken areas. But then you also look at the stands, and it's really good viewing from people in the stands too. So it might be the best track on the grid.
They're all. It's not very often you get it, but they're all slow, hard braking areas at the end of fast sections. So it's like a straight, then a hard brake, and a straight, then a hard brake. And it seems too obvious for that to work, but it just does.
It just does, yeah. I think it's something to do with the camber of the corners, hey?
Yeah, and there's also that big elevation coming into that first corner at the top of the hill, and then you're going down the hill, and the elevation is pushing the car out away from the corner as you're going through that second one. So it does push the cars pretty hard.
What did you think of the big accident between Verstappen and what's the other dude's name? Do you remember?
Lando Norris.
Norris, yeah, that's it. What did you think of that?
I saw immediately online, everyone was going, it was Max's fault. And the first thing I thought was, well, it was Lando's fault. Because if Max still turns in early, how the hell is Lando supposed to make that turn from way out wide, that far out, that deep into the corner and still stay on the track, even if Max gives him all the space in order to do it? But he's not going to make the pass either. So, like, usually what every driver does there is if they're getting out braked or if they've gone in too hard, they'll brake early and compromise their entry speed and try and get a fast exit out of the corner and try and, undercut them through the corner and on the exit so they can get them on the inside for the next corner. But Lando just stuck on the outside and he had nowhere to go other than into the back of Max's car when they were turning. And I thought, that was just dumb from Lando.
So I thought, first of all, hearing fucking Verstappen whinging about his tyres and Lando Norris was doing it a bit too. And I'm like, these two are in the fastest cars on the track and they're just whinging that their cars aren't fast enough. And then Verstappen gets into a race finally with someone. And I thought you could see it building up to that incident for a couple of laps. And I just think it was all right. And then I think Verstappen took it too far personally. And
yeah, he's always had this thing though when he's defending where he defends one side and he always defends on the inside and then he'll move out to the racing line. But he'll move out to the racing line earlier than expected and then he'll hold it. So it's technically it can be argued it's one move, but it is legitimately two. But they're just not two in a row really fast. Like he did when he first came in, he was moving all over the place and they ended up having to change the rule so that you could only move once when defending, not twice. Because I remember, it was when he first got into the Red Bull, and I think it was Sebastian Vettel was behind him, and Vettel was just complaining and yelling and screaming about how unsafe it was driving behind him because he's just moving around all over the place.
Yeah. And
they brought in the rule that you couldn't move more than once when defending. It was basically the Verstappen rule.
Yeah, and I don't know how I feel about rules like that because I would prefer it to just be adjudicated by somebody. Like if it was because there's racing incidents where they just come together and it happens and it's an accident. But I think what Verstappen did on the weekend for me was just it built up. And if it hadn't built up, if it was just a one-off thing, I would have said, you know what, man, that's unfortunate it ended like that. But I feel like it had built up for a couple of laps and he eventually just lost his cool, to be honest.
Both of them were as bad as each other. This thing, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take Verstappen's side entirely because he does do this thing where I think Nico Rosberg used to do it a lot too in corners where he would hold the line longer than he needed to in order to try and push the other driver off the track.
Yeah.
And he will do that a lot. Lando likes to dive bomb into corners as well a bit.
And that track is like the best track for that.
Yeah. But the problem with that first corner is you're going up a hill and it's a hard braking area. It's sharper than a 90-degree turn. So if you dive bomb into it, all you're going to do is go straight on and off the track. You can't make that turn at full speed. You just have to go slow there. And I think Lando was going too fast and he was on the outside line. So he had no chance of making it and staying outside Verstappen and on the track all at once through there. He needed to brake earlier and cut back through the apex and try and get him on the outside going down the straight after the corner. And that's what you see a lot of drivers do through there when they make those passes there. And I don't know what he was doing. He was just lost and Verstappen was just getting in his way on purpose. It was just a mess.
After all the whinging that those two had done, because Lando had been whinging about, I think he'd been whinging about, he'd been whinging about something. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, he was whinging about Verstappen.
Yeah, and then like Verstappen's whinging about his car isn't quick enough, even though it's one of the quickest cars ever. And so when they both went out, somebody else won it. I was actually pretty happy.
Yes.
And I was hoping that Oscar Piastri could come through and win his first race, but he was just a bit too far back.
He was, and didn't have enough laps because he was catching slowly.
Yeah, if it had been 5 more laps, I think he would have got him. But yeah, it was kind of justice the way that race ended, I think.
The thing that got me was, like, Max came in and got repairs to his car done and went back out and finished 5th. But Lando came in and it's like he just had a fucking teach me. No, I'm not fucking playing anymore.
Well, he's like, the underside of his car was fucking wrecked. Like,
I didn't hear that at the time, so I thought he just cracked the shit and went, no, I'm not going to bother anymore, and just fucking retired the car.
No, they both got punctures, but because I was like, they both got punctures, and then I think Verstappen went out, and Lando's car was still in there, and they're still looking at it, but the tyre had just absolutely destroyed the back of his car, basically. And I think he just was like, what are you doing? Like, it's obviously the car's destroyed, you know? So yeah. I think that's more what it was. Because I was shocked. When he came into the pits, I was like, hopefully he hasn't done too much damage with this tyre, because the tyre had fallen apart a bit differently to Verstappen's. And as he was coming in, that tyre was just shredded in the back of the car. It was kind of impressive.
Because I think if he had came out and just driven steadily, he probably still would have finished in the top 10, because they had such a lead. So that's what I thought he would have done, but not to be.
Yep.
Ricciardo somehow managed to get that absolute tractor around and finished 9th.
Yeah, what did you think about what's his name? Fucking forgetting his name. The Canadian dude, French Canadian dude. Villeneuve. What Villeneuve said about him a few weeks ago.
Yeah, pretty. Look, there's an element of truth to what he said, but at the same time, it's not as. I don't think racing today is as simple as it was, but even when he was racing in the 90s, it's not just results anymore.
Yeah,
you know, it's also a business package as well.
I think what he said though was pretty fair. Like, if you look at the cars that he's been in, and we have both joked about Coulthard, how he's been in all of the greatest Formula 1 cars that have ever been, and never won a title, never even come close to a title. You know, Ricciardo's been in some bloody good cars, and yet he only has a few race wins, and he should have done better.
The only cars he was in that was any good were the Red Bull ones.
Yeah, but still, I mean, being in a Red Bull, like, that should be enough.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, he was competing with those Mercedes that had an unlimited cap at the time, and no one was competing with them. And then it was always a childish move. The reason why he left Red Bull in the first place is because he didn't want to be number 2 to Verstappen. Let's be honest, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And he went to Renault, and he performed a lot better than I think a lot of people would have expected him to do at Renault, because they weren't exactly competitive, but he made them competitive. And then he went to that. I don't know why he went to McLaren, because that car was dire, not going anywhere. Somehow got that win at Monza. At Monza. But other than that car was just rear heavy, which just nothing about that car suited his driving style to any extent. And he had to basically break the way he drove and change everything about it to a completely different style that he wasn't comfortable with. And they tried to change the car to kind of meet him halfway, and they made both worse. And it was just a absolute fucking disaster, that whole process. It's a little bit better now that he's back at AlphaTauri, whatever the thing is now. Because the car is a little bit better suited to him now. It doesn't quite have the straight line speed, but in the corners, he's driving more of the lines that he used to drive when he was younger. Looking a lot more competitive. But I think the reason why it was put there is because they saw him as being the genuine replacement for Perez at Red Bull. Not to compete for the title. If that happened, great. But, we just want you there to pick up plenty of points for the constructors, so we keep getting that. Because Perez has been pretty average in that front.
Oh, it's been terrible.
Yeah. Ricciardo's been beating him in some of these races in far inferior machinery.
Yeah.
So I think that was the idea. And because Ricciardo hasn't been absolute garbage at the current team, but he hasn't exactly hit it out of the park like they were kind of hoping he would.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going, okay, well, we'll stick with Perez then. So they extended him, and then they've come out and said, well, we want to get Hartley into the team because we want to go back to having young drivers here. So Ricciardo's back to being on the brink of possibly losing his seat.
Mm.
He's not... I don't think he's done, but at the same time, I don't think he's going to be competing for podiums again unless he gets into like a Mercedes or a Ferrari or a Red Bull, which isn't going to happen.
Yeah, he's entered John Lacey territory.
Well, he's Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. That's where he's at now.
Yeah.
So his time competing for championships and championship points now is done.
Mm.
His role now is to help with basically marketing and stuff, which obviously he does better than anybody else, but also to get the team up and trying to score points on a regular basis. That's it. He's trying to get a team that's low or mid, just another spot higher in the Constructors' Championship so they can get a little bit more coin at the end of the year based on there. And that's all his role's ever going to be now. I think a part of him understands and recognizes that now because he seems to be a lot more supportive of what the team needs and what it's doing and all these sort of things and trying to help with ideas on making the car better and all this sort of stuff. And a lot of those have been helping the team out. But yeah, I don't know. All the teams look to be very keen on getting young drivers everywhere.
Yeah, they do. And I get it because, I think with all of the talent that's in the Formula 2 and I don't know if it's called Formula 3, even in the what's it called? The
E-Series.
E-Series, yeah. There's so many young drivers that are pushing for places. So I understand where I wouldn't even be shocked if it's part of Formula 1 management saying, look, there's got to be some turnover of these drivers. There's all these young dudes that are ready to rock and roll, and you can't just re-sign the same guys over and over again. So I understand why they're going for some of the younger drivers. And it's the same thing as we said with NRL coaches before. Everyone wants that 18-year-old driver that comes in, races for them for 15 years and wins 8 championships, That's their dream. So they're all looking for that dude.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the thing. I mean, they are bringing in another team in 2 years' time, so they'll have 2 extra spots available on the grid.
Yeah.
But I don't know what happens with people like Ricciardo. Even Bottas might be struggling to find a seat soon. There's so many young drivers coming through, so it will be interesting. Piastri though does look to be getting better at a pretty good rate.
Yeah, he's a pretty handy driver. He's not quite as quick as Lando Norris, but he's there or thereabouts.
He's proven to be pretty hard to get past too. Good defensive driver.
Yeah, I don't know that he's got the absolute raw speed, but he seems like he manages the car pretty well during a race, which is huge.
Yeah.
So we'll see how he goes. Hopefully he has a better career than Ricciardo or Mark Webber.
Well, Mark Webber was just crying all the time.
Yeah, Mark Webber was
I'd actually rate what he did in his career as being less impressive than what Ricciardo did, because Webber was there when the Red Bull was the best car on the grid.
It was romping away with it. And yeah, I mean, we've talked about Webber before. If it'd be Coulthard, and the thing about Coulthard was he had a bunch of different cars that were at the time were the best car by a mile.
Yeah.
Weber just had that Red Bull.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why Coulthard's the all-time Sterling Moss Trophy winner.
Harsh but fair. But yeah, this weekend they're at Silverstone.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it's a good race. I really enjoyed watching a race that was actually good and competitive, and shit was happening and there was overtaking and it was just really fun. And when I was watching, I was like, I was going to message you and I wasn't sure if you'd be up watching it. I was like, I hope he's watching it. So, yeah, it was cool. So hopefully this weekend's the same sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, I'll be up and I'll be watching it.
Excellent.
It's going to be great. All righty. Well, now that we've got the Rugby League chat out of the way of our Formula One chat, we should change this, actually. Fergo and the Freak F1. It's just so much alliteration. It just works.
Yeah. F1.
F1 and footy.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you check us out on all the socials. Give us a like and subscribe over on the YouTube. That'd be sweet. I was just going to say, it'd be good if we could get to let's make our goal something crazy, like 1 million subscribers. What do you reckon?
Yeah, let's do that.
Right. Let's just see, because we're closing in. We've had a few extra subscribers in the past week, so we're closing in. We just need. I'll get the calculator out because I'm not good with numbers. 1 million. Oh, there we are. There. So we just need 999,811 more subscribers to get to 1 million.
We can do it.
We could do it. If we can get that done by the end of the week, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
So get on it, people.
Don't let us down, everyone.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll come on. Freaky will go and get drunk and smash a tree if you don't go there. Get us to 1 million. I don't know. I've got nothing else. But yeah, how's that? We should do a countdown every week to see how we're tracking on our pursuit to 1 million subscribers on YouTube.
It'll be a good journey.
All right. And each episode from now on could just be the number we need to get there.
Imagine that.
I confuse everyone. Oh, look, it's gone down by 1 again. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to check us out on all the socials, and we'll catch us all next time.